We kind of let's kind of circle back a little bit. We kind of covered some of the dashboards out there on Canada, BC, BC dashboards on GIS, but there is features that look similar to Power BI, and we've kind of mimicked that in the best way. There's a few things that are slightly different. The sliders being something similar in Power BI, but the tabs may be something that needs to be set up with a few other methods potentially in Power BI, or something that's not quite the same as what it would be in GIS. And GIS is on polygon mapping. I've worked with GIS myself, so I know a little bit about it. So it can create these layers, and then in GIS you can kind of stack these graphs on, maybe have these buttons of these different graphs that are stacked on that dashboard in the same location. The cards and slicers, definitely there's these filters up top here. They're filter with dashboard values for different health authorities, for example, or all. It does change the graph, and we were able to do that successfully in Power BI. Did mention that if you Google, Power BI slicers or sliders, there's a lot of different videos out there, and there's a lot of different functionality that can be done. Some claim that's one of the benefits of Power BI. This fellow's got quite a few of them. Here he is again. You can create different ways that the sliders function with the different graphs, etc. So there's quite a lot of different videos and different ways of using the sliders in Power BI. So one of the successful sort of areas, and pretty easy to set up, as we just saw. We'll continue on from there. The graphs themselves, we're able to reproduce pretty much the same as on the dashboard, which is awesome. And so on. The map will do this latter half after the break as well. We'll see that it's actually quite, there's quite a few steps, so I'll go through them with you. Maybe they're, just so we kind of visualize or kind of think about some simple things that we see on a dashboard, but takes a little bit of time to figure out. Alrighty, so let's, without further ado, go to those clustered bar charts, stack charts, column charts. Filters that we did as well, some sliders, sliding the date, and then linking those interactions. So again, if we go back to this first dashboard here, this slider changes the graph as similar. I mean, this slider on the Power BI dashboard for BCCDC is up top here, but I'm putting it here for now, just has room there. But it does change the graph, so that functionality is confirmed, works as planned. As the goal was to create this slider. Again, when you're clicking on these different things or setting them up, the visualization, this is usually the first step, is to start here and then select the fields or the data and then look at the filters. That's one thing I wish Power BI was slightly different. I wish they had visualizations first, then the fields, then the filters after. So I'm not too sure, but I guess maybe because you can minimize the filters and then expand the actual dashboard. And again, there's different views here. We can click on the tables versus the relationships, which in this case, we don't have all the tables linked. Minimize this slightly. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to the document. So we know editing the relationships are there. And the way the sliders can be linked to one graph versus many. It's a drop-down list versus an actual range. It could change the tiles, and these tiles, when you're first setting them up, if you get a list like this, for example, you go to the actual format page, or sorry, no, I gotta click on it first. This actually format, and then we go into the settings, and then if you go vertical, it changes to a smaller version, which might be the case that you want, or a larger sort of tile version. It's like more like buttons, sort of mimic what that CDC dashboard looks like. So that's pretty easy to do. Okay, so the next is the cards, which is fairly straightforward. It's another kind of quote unquote successful sort of visualization or functionality that Power BI has set up for us, or for the users in general. It can be linked to just reporting case numbers like this one, or the date like this one. So it depends on what you're selecting. And again, the nice thing about Power BI is when you click on something you've already made, it shows you what the data is, etc. So we'll just create one card here, maybe just do the date, for example. And like cards, you can link the today's date. There it is, and you can link the cards depending on what the values are to the health authorities or stuff like this. So it will change in those filters. The card, there's also this multi-row card, which I haven't really used that much. From the BC CDC dashboard, it looks like there's only one values in here. But we can maybe think about ways of multi-card potentially. I'm going to try that acute care setting and maybe think about rural cases. Maybe there's different ways of using this card. Different settings here. Category labels. So font versus border shading and stuff like this. Title. So I guess that's what it means. Multi cards could display multi information. So that's cards. Pretty easy to use on a dashboard for visualizations. It's nice to have. We can actually upload icons too, like here, like a hospital icon or first people icon or bed or coronavirus icon to the cards, so it has some visual aspects, whereas the graphs don't really have that. So this map is a little bit different than in Power BI. There is a link to GIS in Power BI. I'm trying to remember which one. Oh, here it is. Those are GIS maps for Power BI. I didn't do that for this exercise. There is steps that can be done. You can kind of click on it and see what it looks like for now. Oh, I see. Yeah, you have to get more. You can link maps to that in a certain way. You have to sign in online to ArcGIS, which I don't have an account right now to do that. So again, Power BI and ArcGIS and SRI have that signage or connectivity versus via the sign-on, similar to like the Azure, Microsoft, and other sort of apps. Similar to the Dataverse as well, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I wanted to mention that later on at the end. Okay, here's the map here. It looks very simple, and this took me quite a little while to figure out. I don't want to say how long, because it was kind of one of those things. Anyways, I want to first acknowledge one person that I found on LinkedIn. And actually, this guy, Mr. Ahmad Chami, he has this company. He works at PHSA, and I think he works at Ministry now, Ministry of Health here in Victoria. I went to a talk of his at HIMSS, BC HIMSS, last year, and he had some tips on mapping HAs in Power BI and works with Power BI. So I had a nice conversation with him via LinkedIn, which is great. And so it helped out tons. So I wanted to acknowledge on that. So you can see the document, there's quite a few steps involved. One of them, interesting enough, is when you can see this is highlighted in gray. I wish it had a yellow or something. I guess people are colorblind in yellow, so maybe that's why it's gray. But I wish it was highlighted better, but it's called a shape map. And when you initially start your Power BI, you won't see the shape map. You actually have to enable it. Enable it by going here. I think it's options and settings, and then options. Yeah, okay, features. You can see quite a few little options in here. Studio. This is where you link Power BI. I use Anaconda for Python. But there's some tutorials on Python. And same with R. This is where you would set that up if you're interested in that linkage. Okay, so this it's called preview features, and there's a bunch of other ones. This Azure map visual as well. You'd have to do some sort of application you have with that. You'd have to link that. You have to start this feature. When you start these features that aren't selected initially, you checkbox it, right? And then you'd have to restart Power BI, and then this will show up. And then when it shows up, then you can actually click on it and then continue on. So let me go back here. Back. One of these pages. There we go. Okay, so here it is here, just by itself. There's a shape map. Let me create another one. So click on the shape map, and there it is. In the documentation, from that feature to the actual selection, before you actually select it, there is BC Data Catalog. And the BC Data Catalog link is here. They have a few different other health data. If you just type in health here, there's a few different, including COVID, but they have this one's from 2001 till this is the one I believe we need. And then this data from the catalog, we need the BC Geographic Warehouse custom download. And that's not it. What's that site again? So there it is here. Click on it, and then you request access. Might be able to. Oh, here it is. Okay, so then you request access. You put your anyone can do this. Put your email in there, and we want the format to be a JSON, but it's a GeoJSON with the BC sort of coordinate system. And there's just coding. There's actually, I think it's a part of an ISO coding map, and I'll show that in a little bit. So you get the file via this request. Here's what I just mentioned with your email. You'll get an email and with a link, and then with that link you get a zip folder, and then there's the file you really need, this JSON file. And then from there you can go into this map shaper, shaper org, select file. Let's go down here. I think I already have it somewhere. Just shaper org. Desktop. Shaper org is the one. Import options, import. Then you get then it shows you the boundaries, and these are the boundaries. This is northern health, island health, Fraser health, interior, coastal, and then part of this island health as well, this area. I believe this is northern health, but I'm not too sure. There's First Nations Health Authority has a little piece around here somewhere, I think, there. That one here. Anyways, so from there, then you would, what's the next step? Pretty sure you do. Oh yeah, you just select the type of file. Oops, I'm sorry. Should be a different sort of pop-up. I've done it already on this file, so maybe that's the reason why I'm not showing exactly. That's what we were at right now on the dashboard. Oh yeah, export. Maybe. Oh, I gotta click export. Okay, export. So then the export, we want to get the GeoJSON, which is, oh, maybe I think it's GeoJSON. No, it's the top. Here, okay. So we want to export the data, link to that top JSON. That it's not the best visual there, I must say. Oh yeah, so it's that one. So this one here, and then export it. Okay, then we have the file here. Let me open it to this format, and then downloads. Okay, there it is. Let me put it on my. And so from there, around in here, and then from there we start that visual, which we have here, that map, and then we'll see there's location and color saturation, which we'll try to highlight. And then we have this file that we can load, and that's the JSON file that we just had. And to do that, wait a minute. Add features in there. Let me just go back just a second. Oh, okay, right. That's what I have to do first. Just check again. This is reported in HA. Oh, okay, so this is reported. Okay. Pieces reported in HA. So we see that the default is the US map. So we have to go from US through so I believe I've highlighted the right color saturation here. We just want to double check again. HA, color saturation, yeah. So we have this default as US, so we need to change that. And to do that, it's in the format. and it's under map settings. Here we have, obviously US we don't want. We think that we could do Canada provinces, but we can't, doesn't work. At least I couldn't figure that out. We want to change it to the Mercator, not the orthographic, but the Mercato. And then we want to load the file. So custom, then we want to load it. And then we have, I believe it's this one here. We want to load that file to that. And then there you go. That's how you get the map. So a few steps, the VC data catalog, it's nice to have. Great. If we didn't have that file from them, we might have had to create our own sort of custom way of bringing in the keys. I wanted to show part of this is bringing in a JSON file, and because part of this is this file that I just loaded here actually contains all of these columns. So it's kind of interesting. It's not typical flat file. It's not an Excel file. So let me, I'll get the data and we'll just click around there for a little bit. So that's the map, though. That's how I created the map. And then you can put on the dashboard, you can have the sliders and graphs linked to it. And you can actually click on the map as well to change some of those graphs too. Just did it. What did I do? Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Oh, here we go. Ah, disappeared. Okay, so we want JSON to get the data, and then from the JSON data, all files. Okay, then there's this one here. Open. Takes a little bit of time. Okay, so we saw before, like with our other, in this view, this is the transform data view. Again, you got machine learning here, text analytics, a few other things, split columns, stuff like that. We got the DAX, DAX. We got the dashboards here. So if I click on here, it's just a tip. It looks like an Excel sheet, but and here's the previous one that I loaded because I expanded, and you'll see these steps show up with this example again. To expand the JSON, it's fairly straightforward. It's just clicking through, and then it starts expanding them and bringing them forward. I need to go back to the list. Okay, so then I expanded a few things, and you can see there's some coordinates, some values for that, types, polygon versus multi-polygon, potentially GIS kind of things, just health authorities, feature codes, which is interesting, some sort of map code, I'm not too sure, and so on. So to create that map, that JSON file has quite a lot of information. Thought it was kind of interesting as an exercise. So let's go back to the dashboard again, and you'll want to click in there to show some of the features of that map. So, so if I click, yeah, see if I click on northern, then the graph changes. Now the graphs change, which is kind of cool. So even though you have your sliders here, you can do something similar. Your map is also linked, and I can turn it off as well. I can have it just a static map, but yeah, that's a nice thing about Power BI. Okay, so that's the map. Does anyone have any questions? For Manitoba, you probably go through something similar. There might be a catalog online somewhere for a map shaper to go to a JSON file and then load it into Power BI in a similar way. Maybe Tableau has to go through a similar exercise. I don't know that. I found mapping in Tableau was a little bit easier. Mind you, I did map BC. Okay, so just to sort of round off today, there's this data that I grabbed from that site. Before I forget, I wanted to mention a few things. One is in terms of data, there's Dataverse here, and if you're not familiar with Dataverse, scholars and upload their research to this site. This is the site here, dataverse.org. Researchers can, publishers, research students can load their stuff here by logging in. Within this site, there's some repositories. There's Harvard Scholars Portal and UNC. I go to Scholars Portal. You can look up different data sets, different types of data. So you can see there's 1,000 of them, and there's different selections of these, form, etc. So that Dataverse, that's in Power BI. It can link to this portal via that icon in the ribbon here, the top ribbon. Another site not linked to Power BI is Zenodo. If you haven't checked out zenodo.org, it's pretty awesome. It has much more data sets to view, and there's lots of different file types. Wow. Yeah. So that's the data. So I have this LTC, and it's not on the dashboard. This long-term care and acute care. And there's a few different things going on in there. One is there's residents, staff, and total cases, different dates, and there's health authorities versus the communities that they're in. Again, it was from that BC CDC site. The acute care facilities obviously are different than the long-term care. Long-term care meaning more lodges and nursing homes and stuff like this. So in the document, I just kind of did the standard sort of cluster of columns. We can do it either or, but I just wanted to graph them with you, a basic sort of graph, and then we can finalize today's workshop. So again, clicking on the clustered column as we started out today, this afternoon, and then I can, start off with long-term care. You can click on all of these values. Power BI puts a sum in front of these, but it doesn't mean there's actually that they're an aggregate. It just means they're numbers. They could be summarized. There's different ways of clicking in here. You can do averages and stuff like this, or different column names and new measurements, all this kind of stuff. So that's that one, and then you can do health authorities, and then the graph can kind of give you an idea. Fraser Health has total cases are high, total deaths are a little bit higher than the others. There's staff, there's residents, for example, and patient cases, patient deaths, unfortunately, and then there's staff as well. So Fraser Health being number one, and this is Interior Health, number two, I guess, and then VHA, Vancouver Island Health, Coastal and Northern Health, and then some other coastal setting here in IHA. Maybe there's something in the data set that Interior Health was, or Island Health Authority, maybe it was slightly labeled wrong. Same with this one, it's slightly labeled different than this one, which is unfortunate, but I just used the raw data. So that's the long-term care. So you see the values are 15,000, and then we can go into clusters here with all of these settings. Yeah. And maybe expand it out a bit. So there's 800, not 15K, in the acute care, and Fraser Health being total cases being quite a bit higher than the rest, which, you know, population-wise, there's a trend there. A little higher population, more cases, linear. And then there's staff here as well, and then there's patient deaths. So similar to the long-term care, but slightly different, slightly less magnitude. It's kind of interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. We can put that on the dashboard, you know. Yeah, so that's kind of, and right from that site, I you know, the PDFs I put into Word or Word, and then I grab them out of Word, put them in Excel. There might have been a better process than that, but that's, and then I combine them all together to have this data. And didn't clean it or not. So there's some, I think there's some cleaning, data cleaning that needs to be done here. But other than that, it's kind of interesting. The magnitude and sort of trends are similar from long-term care to acute care. And so that's kind of the end of the session. There's one thing I also wanted to mention, which I thought the John Hopkins, when I remember when COVID hit, and I was kind of like, you know, checking out some stats or something like that, and then this John Hopkins thing showed up all the time when searching in the beginning, and their dashboard was right out the get-go available, which was kind of interesting. Another thing is that if you're interested in chatbots like Dialogflow with Google's, I was clicking in Dialogflow and I could link the data. It was set up already to link COVID data and sort of canned responses from the John Hopkins data in the Dialogflow chatbots. We also have the CX versus ES, which one is natural language processing. But anyways, I was clicking in here, and you're able to. I'm just doing this on spontaneous sort of, but you're able to create actually an agent with the Dialogflow and link it to that John Hopkins. And the dashboard on John Hopkins is international. And it's pretty neat how it's pretty interesting how they organized it the way they did. They also have these tabs that are similar to what the VCCDC has. And it does look like GIS here as well, because you can click on these base maps, and they've definitely got some either satellite or GIS linked to them. Similar to the VCCDC. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the workshop. If you have any questions, you can email me. My email is dcrimes@uovic.ca, or you can just Google my name, Dillon Chrimes, and my email shows up. Can run through some exercises with you, or if you have any interest in Power BI, just let me know.